Well, hello and welcome all to this first in a series of 4 summer seminars on new work in art conservation, organized by the Edith O'Donnell Institute of Art History at the University of Texas at Dallas. I'm Sarah Kozlowski, Associate Director of the O'Donnell Institute and Director of the Center for the Art and Architectural History of Port Cities, which is housed at the Museo di Capodimonte in Naples. It's in collaboration with the Capodimonte that we welcome today's distinguished speaker, Angela Cerasuolo. And I'm especially pleased that the O'Donnell Institute and the Capodimonte are co-presenting this seminar because both the Institute and the museum are deeply committed to bringing close study of artworks, sites, and archival materials together with scientific approaches to research, including digital art history and technical analysis. In the case of today's speaker, those humanistic and scientific methods come together in the eye and hand of the conservator. Angela Cerasuolo is a conservator and restorer, an art historian, and for many years, head of the conservation department of the Museo di Capodimonte in Naples. She has carried out restorations of major paintings, both at Capodimonte and in the churches of Naples, including works by Bellini, Raphael, and Titian. Her practice as a conservator has also led to research in the history and theory of restoration and the history of painting techniques. Her work on Renaissance painting techniques includes the important volume Literature and Artistic Practice in 16th Century Italy, which was published in 2017 by Brill. She has collaborated with and lectured at many universities in Naples, Rome, Paris, and beyond. At Capodimonte, I've had the great pleasure of standing at Angela's side while looking at masterworks by Simone Martini and Giovanni Bellini, and there are few people whose way of seeing brings together such visual sensitivity, scholarly rigor, and poetry. Today, she will present the findings of her recently completed work on Bellini's Transfiguration. The title of her talk is The Transfiguration by Giovanni Bellini from the Capodimonte Museum, Remarks on Technique and Restoration. Welcome, Angela Cerasuolo.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm very grateful for this invitation, and I'm happy to be here with talking with this wonderful occasion that I had to make this restoration and to talk about this with to you. Okay. You know, the Transfiguration, it's one of the most important paintings by Giovanni Bellini. It's a very important painting in his own career and in the history of art at all. His restoration was a great occasion for knowledge and to deepen also many aspects about its technique and its conservation. Many paintings by Giovanni Bellini had problems with conservation, with the cleanings in the past, and with the old restorations. And so also our painting that is, I think, wonderfully conserved, had many problems in the past too. Let's go at the beginning. The most far news we have about it. We know from Francesco Barbarano in the Storia Ecclesiastica della Città di Vicenza about what is believed the most probable provenance of the painting. The Vicenza Cathedral, il Duomo di Vicenza. Francesco Barbarano talks about a wonderful painting by Bellini, una bellissima pittura di Giovanni Bellino, that was kept time ago. He talks at the beginning of the 17th century. He talks about this painting in the Cappella Fioccardo, that is the second chapel on the left of the Vicenza Cathedral, the one we see here. Now, this cathedral, this chapel was owned by an important archpriest of Vicenza, Alberto Fioccardo, and there were buried he and his brother. But when Barbarano talks, the painting yet was not there, was been elsewhere. And in this picture, that's the actual arrangement of the cathedral. I try to reconstruct, to have an idea of the original arrangement of the painting. You know, the painting has a very particular lighting. I think it's a painting about light, light that comes from Christ, but it seems to come from the painting. And the original arrangement, I think it's important to understand something also about the lighting of the painting in its origin. Now, you know, in the second chapel on the left of the cathedral, there is this big new construction, but and this is the image behind it. But we can see these beautiful windows, and in another, I tried to make a reconstruction, obviously with a Photoshop, fiction. With another chapel, you see they are very similar one to the other, and have this similar light. Very particular because it's the light is behind, and in this, I think that's why one of the matters, because the painting is so bright, because it has to be bright against light. And here you see the new painting that is in the church by Maganza at the end of the 16th century. It was put in the chapel. We don't know the original arrangement, but probably it was put at the place of the Bellini Transfiguration. It's the same subject. So this is why we can imagine it was at the beginning in the church. Sorry, it's not a refined work, but I made a homemade Photoshop to get an idea of the original arrangement. After, we know that the painting was in the inventory of Collezione Farnese collection in Parma in 1644 inventory. So we know that at the end of the half of 17th century, the painting was not anymore in the church, and after some years, it was in Capodimonte. In Capodimonte, no, excuse me, it was in Parma. From Parma, we know that it's recorded in several inventories in the Palazzo del Giardino, after in Palazzo della Pilotta, and in 1734, it arrived, was transferred with the rest of the Farnese collection, as we know, in Napoli. And in Napoli, it was visited in the Capodimonte palace, where that's the place where it is now too. Capodimonte, it was visited by some visitor like Tommaso Puccini that had a enthusiastic description of it. He was very, very astonished of the beautiful of this painting, and says that it's more beautiful than Draper painted by Raphael. After in Capodimonte, let's begin to talk about about bad news, about the problems of conservation of the painting. And these are some news from documents and archives that we found about the condition of the painting in not anymore in Capodimonte, but in the Real Museo Borbonico, when it was transferred after some years in the Museo Borbonico, museum that the Borbone arranged in the beginning of the 19th century. So we have this news about problems, about humidity, about not perfect, not suitable condition of conservation. And so we know some of the alarm about the need to repair from damage happened before because of the humidity, and also because of worms, and because of blistering, and so the need to restore it. You see, these are documents in 1828 and after in 1845. Also, we have an important notice about a new framing that was made in 1845 in the occasion of Congresso degli Scienziati. It was a congress, and it was in that occasion the museum was visited, and so the people who had in care the paintings was thinking that it was of the opportunity to put new frames. And it's interesting because I think that the frame that there is now, that the painting has now, must be the one that was made at the mid of the 19th century. After, we have other very, very interesting notice about a restoration that happened sometimes before 1868. In 1868, a restorer, Achillo Fiore, made his own curriculum to present to the Ministry of Public Instruction, because he wanted to be to have to be take in charge in the museum, because he says he's been working for many years and made a lot of important restoration. And he says that between this important restoration, he had made again the face of the San Peter in the Transfigurazione di Gian Bellino. E says di aver supplita di nuovo made again a damaged head. It was a very not good idea for him to talk about this, because we are talking about the years in which the national government of a new organization of the museum after the unity of the Italian state had a new government, a new way to also to come si può dire, about restoration. They have a very more rigorous, more the principle, dunque, it was not good to repaint for the organization. They knew that in the past, very often, painters made again parts in the paintings, but the new way that was followed in that years, we are talking about 1877, was to be very rigorous and not put anything new in the old paintings, but leave losses, leave the losses the way they were, without paint again. So this huge new in painting that we today have because I will say we have maintained this old in painting. It was so like a scandal in that moment. And so we know this about many letters between the direction of the museum and the direction of the ministry in Rome. And they ask why it was possible so a big not allowed in painting. And they in one of these letters we found written again an important document, circolare, that was sent to all the museum to say that they had was sent by the ministry at the beginning of the 1870, saying that it was not allowed to paint again. These are distractions. I read you the instruction and the translation. The restorer had to apply colors close to those of the original painting, ensuring that they are lower in tone in comparison of the original. They have not to paint again. The fact that the restoration is visible is of little importance. Indeed, it should be visible. What is important is that the original painting should be respected. Any deception, even when elegantly carried out, should be done away with. In this way, the scholar will be able to distinguish in the painting what is just been restored and what is original from what is new, and draw a useful teaching from it. The connoisseurship, the connoisseur, the scholar had to have the painting free from any in painting, because had to read the original and not anymore. We have other information about restoration in the time, many years after, in occasion of the restoration made for the new Capodimonte Museum. In 1957, the museum that had is from the 19th century till 1957, the museum was housed in the same building with the Archaeological Museum in Palazzo degli Studi. It was a big museum, important, but too much big to house also the modern collection. So after the Second War, Bruno Molaioli had this new idea to bring again in the Palace of Capodimonte the collection, and that is the origin of the Museo di Capodimonte as we know now. In that occasion, many restorations were made, many conservation, and together with the organization of the museum, of the rooms of the museum, of the new arrangement, there was also made a big and beautiful laboratory for restoration, and many restorers were called to work there. So we have in this book, Quarta Mostra di Restauri, it's an exhibition that was made in 1960, in which we found a lot of information about the conservation made for the new Museo di Capodimonte in 1957. About the Transfigurazione, we have a singular important information. They had no news about the old documents that we found after, but the restorer was aware of the painting, and during the cleaning of the painting, found that these parts were not original. So in the book and the entry about Transfigurazione in this Quarta Mostra di Restauri, we found that we talk about the new, the restructure, le due teste degli apostoli, the two heads of the apostle, they were totally unpainted, but the reconstruction were respected, as only fragments of the original were present beneath, because they realized that there was not original under the old painting, and so they left them. This is true for the St. Peter, not just for the St. James that it was damaged, but we had the possibility in the actual restoration to remove the painting and have the original under it. Another interesting and very also significant and dangerous in reading of an X-ray happened, and have to tell that this reading of the X-ray had changed also the critical fortune, the critical story of the painting, because it was included in some studies of many important scholars, this date, because in the reading of the X-ray that was made in that occasion in 1956 was wrong, really wrong, because there was a wrong way to consider the transparency of some painting layers, like the leaves of the tree in the X-ray. And this is what we read in the entry that in the Quarta Mostra di Restauri. X-ray examination has shown that the two small figures in the landscape, only one, the original figure listed in white, is original, belongs to the original painting. And the other figure is a spurious addition made much later. The original of and also the originality of the thick foliage is very doubtful. This reading, that the think that this figure was false, and also the think that the foliage was false, was accepted in many studies after. But it depends on the particular way in which the painting is realized. The branch of the tree are painted over the sky, and the sky is very opaque, very dense in X-ray, and so that's why we can see the foliage of it, but not because it's false. It's in this occasion, the story we made in 2019, we can say without no doubt that this part are original, not in paint. Let's think what could happen if the conservators thought to remove what they thought that was false. Fortunately, it was not the case. This is what says the entry in the exhibition catalog after. They say nonetheless, as we are dealing with one of the fundamental paintings for 15th century paintings, we have decided not to remove those parts that we believe to be false, for the sake of the traditional appearance of the painting, and also to enable the experts to issue a statement a priori on whether or not such intervention is appropriate. This caution, this very decision made possible for us to have important parts, original parts of the painting, and to make not a so big mistake. What we see here is the old X-ray that was made in 1956. It's an imaging that was made less readable because of the big cradle that I will show after, and that we removed. These are old damages that we see in some photographs of before the restoration in 1956. These are photographs of the beginning of the 1950s. And also, it's the date is described in this strange way in one of the photos. And it's the date of 1951. You see, there were two big areas in which the color is these were big losses. that were in painting in old times and were newly damaged. After, in the restoration of 1951, these parts were in painting again. And we will find this condition again during our restoration. You see now the painting before the restoration in 2017 and after 2019. Let's say something about this, about the Transfiguration. It's a very particular subject, and it was a celebration that was instituted by the church very late in 1457 to celebrate the defeat on the Turks during a crusade. And Bellini made some more than one time paintings about this composition. And we know this composition in an older painting in his career. It's about 1460. And this painting is conserved in the Museo in Venezia. The same subject is displayed in a very different way. You see the great change, the great improvement that the painting of Bellini had in some about 10 years from that composition to this. And we see also we can make a comparing about one important thing, that important detail that we knew from investigation in the restoration we made. You see, let's talk about the Transfiguration. It's recorded by the Gospels of Mark, Luke, and Matthew. It's the moment in which Christ brings the apostles, Peter, John, and James, over the mountain. It's believed to be the Monte Tabor, and there it happens something, an apparition. At the moment, his dress will be more white than white. It lights of a supernatural light, and appear Moses and Elias near him. He begins to talk with them, and after a cloud appear, a big dark cloud, and from the sky it arrives in a voice, the God's voice, that says, "This is my son." The chosen one, believe him. The moment that was, you see a lot of difference in the way, in the style of the painting. In the Correr painting, it was very near to his brother-in-law Mantegna, and the way to draw and paint the folders. Now everything is more natural, more soft, and more modern in every sense. But there is also an important change in the iconography. The prophets are not talking with Christ as in the color painting. They are they close their hearts. They are in silence. I think that they are hearing the voice of God from high, from the cloud. And it's very interesting to see that this change happened during the painting. Because if we see the IR reflectography, we see that before Moses and Elias, Moses had the eyes open. And so they were talking to Christ as in the older painting. It's a minor change, just an eye, but it changed everything in the sense and in the atmosphere of the painting. The same is for the other prophets, for Elia, that we can see here in the RX, the radiography, at the eyes open, and after the painter closed it. It's an important change in all the atmosphere, the sense of the whole iconography. And I think that in this painting, Bellini has the possibility to make us to be inside this apparition, and also to hear the voice from the sky, from the cloud, the voice of God. Let's go to see the technique. We know that also in the Correr painting is used to draw every details of the painting very accurately, and this made also in our painting. Let's see this beautiful underdrawing that we can see in the clothes of the San John in our Transfiguration. You see, there is a drawing with the brush, very precise, very modulated in the tone, and very accurate. And we remember what Paolo Pino told about Giovanni Bellini some 50 years after and more than 50 years after he painted. He says that it's not the case to draw so accurately every detail in chiaroscuro, because it's a work lost, because you have to cover it with color. And so the contemporary knew that Bellini was so had this so accurate use of the drawing. But this accurate use of the drawing is useful to put everything just in the right place without any change. And so in this way, it was possible for him to have the great extraordinary light and enlightenment from the paint. Because the priming behind the colors is very clear, very light, and this light reflects and makes the brightness of the color. The same extraordinary particular enlightenment and as an apparition is the painting from the Frick collection in that's now in New York. And in the investigation they made of it, they found a detailed, very beautiful underdrawing the same way. And the same kind of underdrawing we find also in the Palla Pesaro. it was his habit that maybe he will accompany its career. Here we see the X-ray, the radiography, in which we say how the figures are left on reserve without putting the color of the ground, the green ground that accurately goes around every figure. And this color of the ground is prepared with a light green and after completed with the glazes. This image tells us how accurately Bellini prepared and had an idea of everything just where he had to put it. This is the whole reflectography, and I show you the detail. Let's here see again more in detail. You see everything is drawn in chiaroscuro, in light and dark, with a fluid brush drawing. We see again the leaves of the tree that was in danger to be overcleaned in the 50s, and see that there is an underdrawing made incidendo. Okay, I don't find the word. It's inside. It's traced also in the ground, and so it's filled with color, and we see this underdrawing so well in the radiography. Yeah, let's see the detail of the two figures that were in the one that was believed to be false in before the restoration in the radiography. And let's see briefly. We have a lot of things to tell about this restoration, but I will go very fast because I realize that my time is going to end. This is the investigation of fluorescence X-ray fluorescence that have recognized all the painting, all the pigments, and we found also a very particular pigment, stibnite, that's a particular color used for this wonderful bluish hue of the white mantello of the Christ. You see, the tunic and mantle have two very slightly different colors, slightly rose, slightly bluish, and it's made with lake and with this strange black that's called the stibnite, that was used. It's the first time we found it in the story. It would be used often in the 16th century for metal objects like armors. Let's see the UV after the cleaning, when we see the big losses in the ground that we filled again with a tratteggio in painting, and the different fluorescence of some colors, and in particular the very white fluorescence beneath the glazing in the landscape. And in final detail, very interesting, we found that the halo around the head of Christ was painted 2 times. one with a glass, a yellow glaze, very, very, very thin, very maybe some layer with organic material, maybe yellow lake or and with varnish probably, and after with gold put over it, and you see here the same detail in UV, and everything is very. It's not. It's original. It's very well conserved, and makes me remember some observation about something like this that Cesare Brandi made in the Pala Pesaro in the 40s, when and the 50s, when it entered in the cleaning controversy to defend the use of glazings, of varnish glazings by Giovanni Bellini. Very fastly, I show you the big and inappropriate cradle that was probably put in between the 40 and 50s. It was on when it was made the X-ray that we see in 1957, and it's very similar to some cradles that were suggested by Helmut Rühlmann in Museo and in the 30s, and was also published in a Manual de la Conservación de la Restauración, Manual of Conservation and Restoration. It was published in 1939. I think that this kind of suggestion was followed in making this kind of cradle with this particular arrangement. I see, let you see very fastly the big, wonderful work that has been made by Roberto Buda in removing the huge and inappropriate cradle and make a very thin and very precise working on the back of the panel, and applying a new cradle that now makes to be the painting very more safe and more in better condition for its conservation. This is the cradle, and sorry if I was too much long.
Wonderful. Thank you, Angela. Thank you for a wonderful talk that really sets the story of this painting in the context of many things. So theories of restoration over the 19th and 20th centuries, the history of the use of technology like X-ray, as well as the kind of critical history of this painting. At this point, we welcome questions from our seminar participants. We can make this a kind of informal discussion. If you would kindly enter your questions in the chat so that I can read them aloud and Angela can see them as well. I'm sure she'll be happy to respond. As we wait, I have a first question, and that is one of the things that was so striking, and I remember you mentioning this when the painting was in your studio, this use of pink, of rose and blue in the tunic and mantle that appear to us as white. So why this use of rosa and blue to make a white mantle?
Had to distinguish the two different fabrics and to make the different thinness of them, and also to make not a flat situation, but to have at the same time it made a very light and bright colors. He had to make a white, more white than white, as Matthew says. And I think that he was able to. Tommaso Puccini, when he talks about this painting in 1783, says that it compares with Raphael. For him, Raphael was the top, and the transformation of Raphael was the top, and he says it's not less than Raphael.
Yeah. Yeah, this idea of making white more white than white, this attention to to reception, to the not just the kind of abstract color, but to how the colors would be perceived by viewers. Any other questions from our audience? We invite you also, if you would prefer, to turn on your mic and cameras to ask questions. Wonderful. So a question from Mark Rosen, my colleague here at the O'Donnell Institute, who thanks you, Angela, for your this process. He has a question about the 1950s X-ray, and Mark rightly points out that the 1950s were a time of many controversial restorations, not least in the United States. So even though the conservators at Capodimonte misinterpreted the evidence of the X-ray, they didn't make the interventions and actually expressed a very thoughtful attitude about future restorations. And I think, as I remember, that was a decision of Causa, that was Causa's decision to be conservative in his treatment. And Mark asks, was that true in general at Capodimonte, perhaps at that time and perhaps under Molaioli and then under Causa?
I think so. I think so. It has been. I think that the museum in the status of the painting inside the museum from the beginning of its story that we have the possibility to know, has always been very cautious, very seek out of
yes, cautious, yes.
And there have been some moments with some errors, and that errors, the big mistakes, errors, was of come si dice, avvertimento. Sono stati made the conservators more cautious.
Yes.
Raffaello Causa, in particular, that was heading the conservation at that time, was a great art historian. After he has been for many years the superintendent, the director of the museum. I think that he learned a lot, learned by the mistakes of the people that came before him, and was, for this matter, had this right atteggiamento, attitude. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? You know, it also occurred to me that, you know, the point that you make about its original installation in the church matters very much to the way we understand that Bellini devised the painting, and especially the lighting of the painting. So now that the painting is, that restoration is complete, what is the strategy for installation at Capodimonte? What have we learned about the painting and about its original setting that will allow the museum to install it in the best way?
The museum in the next years will have a new enlightenment, a new illuminazione, sì?
Yes, lighting installation.
Lighting, yes, a new system of lighting that is being organized and programmed, and I think that it will be possible to study also about this painting, the best way to lighten it. But I think that is very astonishing of this painting, and you can see more by nearby and not than in the screen. It's that it really has an inner light. Seems to light around in every condition of the light.
Yes.
Everyone.
And that has something to do with the white ground you suggested, with the ground that he's using, and then the transparency of the glazes.
Yes, the light ground, the very, very thin layers of painting, the very, very pure colors.
Yeah.
Without mixing that make dirty the colors.
Yeah.
They're very pure. He used very small amounts of hertz. Most dark colors are made with mixtures of greens and reds.
So instead of brown, to mix pure green and red instead of using brown pigments.
Make browns, not just earths that are natural browns. No, he makes browns with mixing pure colors. And this is one of the origin of this extraordinary harmony in the painting.
Yes. Wonderful. Well, if there are no other questions, I will thank Angela again. And all of us here hope to be able to see it in Naples from Da Vicino very soon. And thank you, Angela, for your work and for your marvelous talk. Thanks to all of you for joining us. We hope you'll join us again next week for the second seminar in this series on May 27th. When we'll welcome Rus Verhaar, who's a postdoctoral fellow in conservation science at the O'Donnell Institute, the Rijksmuseum, and the Corning Museum of Glass. Rus is a conservation scientist, and the title of his talk is The Degradation of Glass in Museum Collections, New Conservation Insights Through Scientific Analysis. So we hope to see you then. And thank you again, Angela. I think we all offer a round of applause.
Thank you, Sara. Thank you. A presto.